Hi everyone. I wanted to record a quick video with the latest version of the Esper Dance list that I'm playing. I was really impressed by Thirst for Meaning in the control decks at the World Championship, so I decided to add two of them to this deck. I think they really synergize well with what we're doing. Putting an enchantment in the yard to bring back with a Dance of the Manse seems really valuable. And I trimmed on two of the Agonizing Remorse. I found that card to be just really bad against aggro and often a little bit underwhelming in a lot of the other matchups. So I think that this change overall will give our deck a little bit more staying power in pretty much every matchup. And yeah, it's been working out pretty well so far. Let's take it to the ladder. I briefly gave in and went on a mono-red stint, so I was playing that for a short period of time, but it just wasn't nearly as much fun. I like the amount of decisions that we get with this deck. I also like feeling like we are working towards turning a corner, and if we manage to stay alive that long, we will win the game. So definitely the more long-term decks suit my playstyle well. So this is a pretty strong starting hand. Archon of Sun's Grace can do a lot of work if it goes unchecked. So here it's interesting, we can choose to scry or play the golden egg. I think against a control deck, I'd rather play the golden egg. Just raw amount of cards is really valuable. And if we do find Doom Foretold, I'd like to have some things on the battlefield to sacrifice. And here we can play Agonizing Remorse and Scry, setting up Archon of Sun's Grace on the next turn. Okay, interesting hand to look at. So they can't cast most of their spells with the exception of Brazen Borrower. I wonder if it is worth it to take one of those away. I can also try to pinch them on lands by taking Birth of Meletus. I actually think I prefer that. We can build up a big mana advantage this way and get to a point where we're playing two spells in a turn where they're just not able to keep up. And Treacherous Blessing is an excellent draw in the control matchup, especially while they're unable to cast Dovin's Veto. So I think we just run it out here. The other option would be to play Archon of Sun's Grace, but that seems like it just plays into their game plan since they could bounce it and they don't really lose anything there. So I think drawing 3 cards when we guarantee it resolves is pretty valuable. Oh, and there is the Doom Foretold. So, yeah, and just the overwhelming mana advantage was enough to make them throw in the towel there. It's a bit of a loose keep on their end, I think. Okay, so against control, we definitely like the Dovin's Vetoes. Since we are going to be on the draw, Mystical Dispute gets a little bit less valuable if they're able to force through a Teferi. We don't want a hand full of counterspells. We're going to shave 2 of the Kaya's Wraths. I like to keep 1 in just as a way to get rid of Dream Trawler. We'll shave 1 Oath of Kaya at least. I don't like to get rid of all of them because having a quick answer to a Teferi or a Narset that tick down is really helpful. And we'll get rid of a couple of the Birth of Meletus. I also like keeping 1 of those in. Just hitting our land drops is very valuable when playing against control. So what else do we want to bring in? Kunaros does not do a whole lot because they're usually bringing Planeswalkers back. It can help pressure a Planeswalker, but it's a little bit underwhelming in this matchup. I think I am going to chance bringing in all 3 Mystical Disputes and just really prioritize not letting a Teferi resolve. Okay, and I think this is definitely good enough to keep. At the very least, we can play Agonizing Remorse onto, and we are likely to hit our third land drop to hit Thirst for Meaning out there. Another nice thing about this hand is that we are not loaded up with counter spells in the case that they are able to resolve a Teferi. I am going to attempt to Agonizing Remorse them. Interesting that they chose to play that out first. They can potentially set up the top of their deck, but it's kind of iffy. I think most likely I would have left that in hand. And certainly looking at this hand, there's no reason I can see that they would run that out before allowing Agonizing Remorse to resolve. Yeah, I have to take the Narset. It's just way too powerful of a card against us. And right on time, we hit our third land drop. So almost certainly I want to play Teferi here to turn off their counter spells. The other option I'm considering is Thirst for Meaning, just to get the raw card advantage. I think playing Teferi though, and then playing the Thirst for Meaning on a future turn makes a lot of sense.
I know my responsibility.
And they don't really have a way to pressure Teferi, and I can't think of too much I'd like to bounce, so I'm just going to draw the card.
Don't worry, I got this.
Alright, and here it makes sense to Thirst for Meaning main phase, just to keep hitting our land drops.
I've got time.
And I'll probably pitch the Oath of Kaya here. And we'll keep up Mystical Dispute. We are telegraphing that, obviously, but I think it's still worthwhile. This does prevent them playing something like a Narset or a Teferi on their turn. I like that they've sacrificed the Omen of the Sea as it opens up our Doom Foretold. Okay, now we have an interesting turn here. I think I want to just play out Doom Foretold, getting rid of Elspeth Conquers Death. And then we can flash in Omen of the Sea on our upkeep. So I'm going to put the stop there. And if they tap out for Dream Trawler, thinking our Doom Foretold is going to go away, we'll really punish them by flashing in the Omen of the Sea. Okay, they did not actually commit anything. I will... Oh, I was going to say I would attempt to Mystical Dispute the Absorb, but here we're not going to have that option. And a couple interesting choices here. I think keeping up Mystical Dispute with the option of Omen of the Sea on their turn is the correct play. It is going to cause us to miss our land drop this turn, but that feels like it could be worth it, especially if they attempt to resolve a Dream Trawler here. And they haven't hit their land drop. They may counter this, which I'm also okay with. And we just want to hit land drops at this point. So here, I think it makes sense to play out the Golden Egg and hold up Mystical Dispute. And we have the option of sacrificing the Omen of the Sea at the end of their turn. And they're still not hitting any of their land drops. I am going to go ahead and scry with this Omen of the Sea. And yeah, I just like continuing to hit our land drops, so I'm going to keep both of those on top. Here, I think it makes sense to attempt to run out the Archon of Sun's Grace and fight a counter war if they play Absorb. we want to really clear the way for our Dance of the Mance, so getting into a counter war over the Archon of Sun's Grace feels okay. If they have exactly another Mystical Dispute, this is bad, only because we could have played around it on the next turn. And now the pressure's on them to find something.
Right on schedule.
And while that is annoying, unless they draw a Dovin's Veto off of it, I think Elspeth Conquers Death will punish them here. Let me go ahead and grab one more white source. So, again, unless they have Dovin's Veto, this feels like a really strong play. It does resolve. And the good news is, even if they planar cleansing to get rid of it, we can bring it back. Now, if they have their own Elspeth Conquers Death here, it is a little bit worse for us. That will open the door for a large Dance of the Mance, however. Okay.
You show remorse. I'll show restraint.
So they're kind of desperately digging, it feels like. And I'm going to sacrifice this to gain the life. Alright, so if we shock here, we can play out Teferi to force through the Elspeth Conquers Death.
I am not going to see this.
And I'm tempted to actually just bounce the Elspeth Conquers Death here. I think I am going to do that. It would only be getting us another Teferi anyway. I like having the option to just replay it, and drawing a card is always nice against a control deck. And at this point, they're really on the back foot. They may be forced to go for Dream Trawler. They are. And we're going to hit them with a really large Dance of the Mance here. And I'm going to do it on my turn, just because I would like the Doom Foretold to get rid of Dream Trawler.
Here goes nothing.
So I believe we can go for 6 here and turn everything into creatures as well. And I'm not too worried about them shattering the sky, as we have another Dance of the Mance in hand. And a ton of cards. And we have another land in hand, so I'm going to start bottoming lands. We've hit quite a few land drops now. The more action we can find, the better. And I think it makes sense to get a scry in here. Dovin's Veto is excellent. Unfortunately, we can't hold that up to stop a Shatter of the Sky right now, but as I mentioned, we do have another Dance of the Mance in hand. And I'm going to get rid of this Godless Shrine. So either Planar Cleansing or Shatter the Sky here as expected. I like the fact that they use the Planar Cleansing, as it does clear the way for a Dance of the Mance with no worry of getting it countered. And I'm debating going for a slightly smaller number to be able to hold up Dovin's Veto. I could also run out the Archon and start playing things like Omen of the Sea, keeping Dovin's Veto up. I actually think this is a much safer play. We can build up a big advantage here, pick apart their hand, and keep up counter magic. Alright, so I am going to get rid of Teferi, because we don't want them to be able to Elspeth Conquers Death our Archon. And the Dovin's Veto will now protect it. And I am going to shock as well, so we can flash in the Omen of the Sea. Okay. And so here the guard is down for them again, and we are going to be able to play another huge Dance of the Mance that should put the game away. Yeah, and it doesn't even get that far. So a pretty nice matchup against blue-white control. I'm still refining this deck. I cannot actually give it up. I do still think it's good. It is a little bit harder to play in the more refined meta with the World Championship deck list, but I think it's got legs, and I plan to keep working on it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.